meditative state. And so the process is here as we begin to do the climb. At the start, you're all over the place. It'll be, where is my position? Where do I stand? What do I do? But in reality, you begin to notice that your body is beginning to change its own structure, its own movement within inside of it. And so if we do this properly to begin with, and we slowly build up, and we slowly come back down again, and we go through this process, 15 minutes a day, every single day, 6 days a week, 78 hours a year, and just keep going on like this. And so the process itself of non-physical conscious touch with intent is really about the mind process. It's about how we perceive the world. Not only perceive it, but how we go into the world, how we put our energy into the world, how we process what's being brought to us from the world, how do we communicate inside of ourselves. And so in order to do that, what we need to do is get down to the basic foundations of who we are, of what we are. And we're this collection, this group, of this community, if you will, of cells, bacteria, viruses, everything, quirks and quarks and filaments and atoms. And so here you are. And the process that we're going to go about is the chi practice. And so the non-conscious, the non-physical conscious touch is really about you. It's about you. I can't promise you a brighter future. Only you can do that. The process that I want to show you is a physical process, but I also have spent the last week going over a mental process. And so if you go back over some of this thinking, it's like waking up in the morning and saying, I'm in a great mood. And then you walk down the street and you wave to somebody and they don't wave back, and next thing you're in a bad mood. So did they put you in a bad mood, or were you in a bad mood to start with and you were just looking for a reason to justify that bad mood? And so you convince yourself that you're happy until this happens, and then that triggers this, and we're right back to where we started from. And so we're looking for a process that will help us to discard everything. And then whenever we leave the process and we come back to it again, we pick up what we need. Yes, we're going to pick up bad habits. Yes, we're going to do, but the more and more we do it, the more we're going to try. Our community is going to try and talk us out of it. More and more that we're going to try and do this or do that. But with perseverance, with tenacity, with awareness, with courage, with freedom, with all these things, we move forward. And it's only 15 minutes a day. It's really easy to do. And I think that the benefits themselves will become very clear very quickly. And so today I'm going to show you the first two movements. In actuality, they would be two separate movements, even though they're seen as one. It's like doing Tai Chi. It's not a whole collection of movements. It's one single movement flowing from one to the next, from each third to the next, And so we're doing the same type of thing here. We're moving from one movement to the next. And it would be really easy to say, well, why not just do this? Well, because you're trying to subliminally, you're trying to rewire, update your firmware. This is a good way to look at it. We're trying to update our firmware. And so we can either come into a situation, with a hammer in our hands or with a sledgehammer, and it's hard to shake a fist, or we can walk in with a very calm demeanor and know that our complete whole being is a defense mechanism against viruses, bacteria, against people, against attack, against whatever. And so if we're working this process, here's a good way to look at this. If you were cutting the lawn and a piece of grass, because it's subconscious, our subconscious is aware, it's aware. And so if we create the framework for our subconscious to use, whenever it does, do this, when it happens, the subconscious, that tape isn't going to the wrong spot. The tape isn't, being clicked over just because, because we're getting a trigger. Instead, it's awareness of our whole environment. And so when I was speaking about in tune, our awareness, it's internally and externally, we have to think of internal watching. And so internal watching allows us, when we learn that, to internally watch ourselves. We learn to externally watch the world. And it's easy to sit back and say, oh, I'm aware and blah, blah, blah. All of us, even as we step out of one box, we step into another box. That's just the way that it is. And so the only way to really escape it all is for all of us to escape the box. There is no one person walking out of the cave while everybody's sitting in a chair, strapped to a chair, watching the visuals on the wall from the fire. The fact is that I don't know. I got off into a tantrum. Anyway, so as you're close like that, we're getting that wah. But remember, you're wah. As we're in, bah. It's close, but we're breaking onto the rocks, we're falling back. We're breaking onto the rocks, we're falling back. We're breaking onto the rocks, we're falling back. While we do that, we're breathing. So we've got our eyes. Every time our head moves, our eyes are always staying where things are happening. Secondly, we need to breathe. Now, breathing is critical to this. Your standing and posting is very important. Your feet are very important to this whole process, but so is your breathing. It's extremely important to this process. We're breathing whenever we make out movements. So we're breathing in through the empty movements, we're breathing out on the full movements, or whenever we're making an attacking movement. Now this isn't always the case. Remember, everything has a rule, but those rules can be broken. Those rules can be broken because sometimes those rules refer to basic people, like to understanding or the basic understanding of a principle. And those rules seemingly become broken as we advance. But if you look back at those rules and you understand that we were doing it gross, that we're too big, too this, too that, it's because of that that those rules exist. They're trying to help us in order to fundamentally put ourselves into that fully into the process. They're big and open, but whenever it advances, it becomes very small and closed. And so what begins to happen is what's happening, what you see at the very beginning, that big bah, is happening internally. And as it begins to really truly happen internally, this outside movement becomes very small because there's no need. Your big toe of this one is pointing towards that nub. The back toe, the foot, is pointing towards that nub. And the two of them would intersect right at the bottom of the hand. So that's like maybe a foot ahead of where my front toe is. We switch to the left-hand side. We're still using our right, but it's a little bit different. You're going to find that it, your body is going to move a little bit different. This arm barge, it starts at the hand. Remember the old, rap dancers back in the 80s, and we do the wave. It's the same basic type of thing there, except for instead of doing the wave through you, you're starting at your hand and you're waving it right up into your shoulder so that shoulder makes contact, and as it comes back, wah, 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 bah. Start with right and left. All right. So we got that. Bah, bah, bah. Remember on that second one, whenever it comes through, wah, bah, right? Whenever it comes through, that's as if we're on the other side, but bah, and here we are. So as it comes through, because we've shot back, wah, wah, this one's coming forward, wah, bah, right? And that's, it's the scoop, wah, wah, wah. You see what else is happening there? Watch this. As this hand is coming up, see how they're both turning, 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 and bah! So you have this type of thing happening, which is really cool. So, now remember, left foot forward, right foot's back. So we're doing the exact opposite. We went up with our right foot forward, we're going back down on our left foot. And so we go from 8 back down to 1. All right, let's say we've got to 1. Our left foot is still forward because we started out with our right foot forward, and we're switching to the other side, to our left. So our dominant leg in a natural stance is forward. So we're on the other side. We were on this side before, we're on this side. Again, we're torso or hips pointed this way, our waist, our torso is pointed this way. So as we come forward, see how that's, you're mixing up the bowl, mixing up the bowl, mixing up the bowl. Now there is a chi gathering aspect to this, which we'll go into a little bit later. But there's a chi gathering aspect. There's a reason why we're doing things the way that we're doing them. It will have an influence on your physical being. It will have an influence on your mental state of mind. It will have an influence in the way by which you deal with the world. Please recognize that there are things in all of us that need to be healed, need to be corrected, need to be repaired, need to be restored. And in order to get rid of those foreign bodies, those alien invaders that are inside of us, we're going to get sick. That's the process of healing. The process of healing is to get sick. That's how we free ourselves of harm, of harmful things, by doing that. So I'm going to say this again. I hope that you please listen. And that is, learn slow. Go through it. It doesn't have to be hammer and nails, but it does have to follow the rules. And so by conforming to those rules, we ultimately will alleviate our chances of letting bad habits sink in or seep in. And the other thing is that our form itself will be far more structurally sound than if